From your point of view, is it looking like AC Milan?
When he did that bombshell interview with Henry Winter and he said he needed a new challenge, my information was that Spain would be his preferred destination. I think it's a difficult deal to do in January when you think Brentford aren't necessarily in desperate need.
Why is Arteta not insisting get us a goal scorer up front? Hi everybody, Jim White here and welcome along to the very latest edition of the talkSPORT Transfer Notebook with myself and my friend and colleague, Chief Football Correspondent here at talkSPORT, Alex Crook is with me. Alex, we were told this could get fairly crazy the month of January in terms of transfers. It appears it's exactly that, right?
I've got to say this has probably been one of the most bonkers Januaries I can remember so far. We're not even halfway through the window yet. There's all kinds of big transfer stories involving some of the biggest names, certainly in the Premier League and beyond. And then you chuck in the managerial merry-go-round into the mix. 2 high-profile Premier League departures this week alone, and that's going to have a knock-on effect in the market as well.
Did you expect this? I didn't.
No, I didn't expect it to be this busy, you know, because we hear about PSR restrictions. I think when we were last here with Michael Bridge, he was talking about the fact that the European season is extended, so that there's games in the group stage in January, which is unique, and that's going to have an impact. But clubs are trying to do business, and I think it's a reflection of just what's at stake in the Premier League in terms of going for the title, qualifying for the Champions League, which is probably a wider open race than we've ever seen, getting one of those coveted European places, and down at the bottom, it's not gone unnoticed, Ipswich Town doing big business to try and stay in the Premier League. And I think that had a direct implication on the decision to sack Sean Dyche.
Alex, it's quite amusing. On the way into the building here this morning, a fella said to me, "Oh, you'll be busy at the moment. This is the time of the year that you've got to work reasonably hard, is it not?" Not so, we work hard all year round. But are you finding that if you're not getting a text message, you're getting a call about something or other every 25, 30 minutes?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're recording this on Friday morning. Thursday afternoon, I'd been on the phone most of the day anyway, trying to stand up various transfer lines. I was actually, believe it or not, and I got a bit of stick for this on drive, I was on my way to the gym when I got the nod that Sean Dyche had been sacked by Everton, and immediately had to make an about turn and go and get that story stood up and take it to air. So I say that the fact there's been such managerial upheaval, I think it's just added to the chaotic mix that is the transfer window.
When you eventually got to the gym, did you see Simon Jordan? Because I don't believe he's ever in the gym. And he tells me he's a regular visitor. That's for another day. What's the standout story for you so far?
In this window?
Yeah.
I think it probably has to be the ongoing speculation about Marcus Rashford, you know, and the fact his entourage are doing this sort of whistle-stop tour of European clubs to try and find him a move. The fact there's clubs in the Premier League who are showing some interest in him as well. So I think that's the one that is going to run and run. Then you've got situations, as I say, with Ipswich Town spending big money to try and keep themselves in the Premier League. I'm still waiting for Nottingham Forest to do business. I'm sure that's going to happen. And actually, Manchester City, usually so cool and collected at this time of year, not ones to dip into the market, they're on the verge of not 1, not 2, but 3 signings. Unheard of for Pep Guardiola in a January window.
We know that West Ham have changed manager. Out goes Lopetegui, in comes Graham Potter. We now know that Everton have done the same. We don't know incoming, but we know Sean Dyche has gone out. What kind of business might those 2 clubs do in view of what's going on?
Well, I think West Ham certainly are targeting a couple of key areas. A new centre forward, because obviously they've lost Mikel Antonio after that car crash. He's been back at the training ground this week actually on his crutches, so that's great to see.
Good news.
Jarrod Bowen is going to be out until February. Nicholas Füllkrug has had a stop-start season, so I think a new number 9, maybe someone like Evan Ferguson at Brighton is a priority. And they're also looking for legs in midfield. 2 players definitely on their radar, Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall, Kane Chukwuemeka at Chelsea. I'm told in terms of the centre-forward position, they're also showing a little bit of interest in Taiwo Awoniyi at Nottingham Forest, who obviously was their main man. He's finding it very difficult now to dislodge Chris Wood from the starting 11 at the City ground. And then you look at other potential options. I know they've asked to be kept informed of Marcus Rashford's situation. That looks unlikely at this stage. I think he'll end up in Europe, but intriguing that West Ham have put their hat into that particular ring. And what about James Ward-Prowse? Now, he is a West Ham player. He's on loan at Nottingham Forest. He played a lot of football for David Moyes. Clearly wasn't fancied by Julian Lopetegui. He's only started 5 games for Forest. For me, he's just the type of player, just the type of character that Graham Potter would embrace. So it wouldn't be a complete shock if they were to recall him from his loan at Forest.
Can I push you on Marcus Rashford? You alerted me to this situation. I've been watching it closely since. Is it likely, can we really push ourselves into some kind of a commitment as to where he's going to end up? From your point of view, is it looking like AC Milan?
I think so. Originally, when he did that bombshell interview with Henry Winter and he said he needed a new challenge, my information was that Spain would be his preferred destination. But you look at the climate over there, Barcelona have only just managed to register Dani Olmo, so clearly they've got financial restrictions. You don't see him fitting in at Real Madrid alongside the likes of Kylian Mbappe and Vinicius Junior. Atletico Madrid have been mentioned, but is he really a Diego Simeone type player? So I think Italy and AC Milan looking far more likely. They've just sold a player, AC Milan, for around about £20 million. So there are some funds there. What I can tell you, we can double down on what we reported on the last show. United know they're not going to be able to sell him this month. They're probably not even going to be able to do a deal whereby he's sent out on loan with an obligation or even an option to buy. So I think it will be a straight loan deal. United are going to have to pick up a fairly significant chunk of his wages, but AC Milan definitely stepping up their pursuit. I
don't know about you, Alex, and I know you're specifically a student of what Manchester United do, but I found it hard to imagine Rashford in a different shirt.
Well, it's funny you say that. My oldest boy is a devoted Marcus Rashford fan. He's a United supporter, obviously, but he won't deviate from Marcus Rashford being the best thing since sliced bread. And he said to me just before Christmas, Dad, wherever Marcus Rashford goes, can I get a shirt of that club with his name and number? I said, not if it's an English club. So if he goes to AC Milan, that's okay.
Alex, let me talk specifically about information gathering. I mean, I've been doing this a long time, as have you. It's a tough old game. You've got to be brave with the information you get, and you've got to act upon it. From a journalistic perspective, what can we say about this particular time? I'm keen to get your views, and I'll come in with mine. But the pressure's on. You've got to get accurate information, and if you do, there's pressure on you to get it out and get it out in the public domain, but there's also pressure on you not to get it out.
Yeah.
Where do you stand on that?
Well, I think the key word you used there was accuracy, because it's very easy to be first and wrong. Sometimes it's more difficult to be second and right. So I think it's the old cliche, more haste, less speed can work against you. Take the Julian Lopetegui situation, for example. That story broke on Monday afternoon. I was actually at a funeral, and literally as I left the crematorium, I got a text message to say Lopetegui gone, Potter in talks. Bombshell information. So I sat in the crematorium car park. I made a couple of phone calls to trusted contacts. I wanted to be sure of the information. I spoke to somebody very close to Graham Potter, and they said, I can tell you that since this morning, he certainly has started talks again with West Ham. Then I spoke to somebody else who I know has got brilliant connections with West Ham, and was told that Lopetegui, well, he's not gone yet. The writing appears to be on the wall. And then I took the information to air. Our understanding is that West Ham have decided to part company with Julian Lopetegui. Now, there's a difference between decided to part company and sacked, because, of course, they didn't actually wield the axe until Wednesday. So, again, I was very careful about the wording. And, of course, as it transpired, he did go on the Wednesday afternoon after taking training, and Graham Potter very quickly was appointed as his successor. What I would say there is I relied on a fairly small pool of very reliable contacts. So again, I don't speak to hundreds of people. I speak to a select group of people that I know if they give me information, it will be accurate.
You see, it's easy for people who observe us at a time like this to knock a story down, or to maybe suggest to you that you shouldn't go with a certain story. Our job is to go with the information we get, as long as it's strong and positive information. One I remember, Alex, back in August 2017, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. And I remember various media outlets saying he's going from Arsenal and he's going to Chelsea. And I remember that at that time I thought, Chelsea, really Chelsea? And a very good contact of mine, you have great contacts, a contact of mine came to me and said, Oxlade-Chamberlain, do not go in the Chelsea direction, Liverpool. Liverpool's where the boy wants to go, and Liverpool is where he went. And he joined Liverpool and signed a 5-year deal. But do you agree with me, Alex? You're on your own for that specific amount of time when the blood pressure rises and you think, my God, I hope I'm right. Have you had that feeling?
Yeah, one of the most famous ones was a story about Joe Hart, England goalkeeper, being dropped from a tournament and at the time he was viewed as England's number one. I got the information a good few days before the squad announcement. I ran with the story, and then you're sweating for a few days then until the squad is actually formally announced, and you're relieved actually Joe Hart isn't in the squad, and your big information has proven to be accurate. And I guess it was the same to a certain extent with Lopetegui, because it was a bizarre situation that I knew on Monday that he wasn't going to be the West Ham manager by the time they played Aston Villa on Friday in the FA Cup. But he wasn't actually formally told that until Wednesday afternoon. He took 2 training sessions. He was even penciled in to speak to the media on Wednesday afternoon, and then you start to sweat a little bit. But ultimately the information was correct.
See, various know-it-alls who know nothing will try and pour cold water on your story. More often than not, Alex, way back when, I found that the best way to stand up a story is go to the source itself. And I remember many years ago, you'd be but a boy, July 2002, all the talk was Rio Ferdinand's going to be out of Leeds United and will join Manchester United in a £30 million deal. And the man who told me, the deal is getting closer, was Peter Ridsdale at Leeds United, who was having a holiday break down in the south of France in Nice. I got an address from him, turned up at his door, knocked on the door, Ridsdale opened it, and I watched as the deal was done.
Wow.
So if you're on the doorstep, literally, you can see it unfold. And memories like that, I don't know about you, they never leave you, do they?
Well, that is good old-fashioned journalism, Jim, right there. And actually, you mentioned Rio Ferdinand. I actually covered his first appearance as a Manchester United player. It was a pre-season friendly at Bournemouth, and I covered Bournemouth regularly at the time. And MUTV, United's in-house TV station, banned every other media outlet from the tunnel. So therefore, we couldn't speak to Sir Alex, we couldn't speak to Rio Ferdinand after his debut, and I thought, well, I'm not having this. I was a little bit smaller then than I am now, and I climbed through a window in the corridor to get into the tunnel and made sure that I got a few words with Rio Ferdinand, and I remember speaking to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, but I just sort of appeared, through this fairly small window, and it was a look of shock, but I think actually, particularly in Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's case, he respected the fact I'd made the effort and he gave me an interview.
Mate, magnificent. That's more than I've ever done, I have to say. Fantastic. While we're patting ourselves on the backs at the moment, and clearly we are, and why shouldn't we? Because nobody else pats us on the back. Let's introduce to the proceedings, Alex, something we'll call Journal Corner, in which Alex and I will discuss one or two of the transfer stories that are making the newspapers at this particular point in time. Bryan Mbuemo, I remember when he was part of that great triumvirate at Brentford, and of course he's still a Brentford player, but he's attracting attention from Manchester United, according to the Mirror, the Daily Express and the Star. Are they on the right track with that?
I think it's a difficult deal to do in January when you think Brentford aren't necessarily in desperate need for the funds. They themselves are potentially eyeing a European challenge if they can sort out their away form, and I think the type of transfer fee they would command for someone like Mbuemo this month probably is out of Manchester United's reach. I do think if we get to the end of the season and Mbuemo is still scoring goals with the regularity he has been, not just Manchester United but some of the top clubs in the Premier League will be looking at him. I think he'd be a perfect fit at Arsenal. Versatility along the forward line, the fact he knows where the goal is at a time when maybe they're struggling to finish teams off. So I think if United are interested, they certainly won't have a clear run at him.
I'm glad you said Arsenal, because they've been linked with Alexander Isak, but he looks to me as if he's absolutely locked in at Newcastle United. But many Arsenal fans will ask you, as they're asking me at the moment, why aren't they adding to the squad? Why is Arteta not insisting get us a goal scorer up front?
I don't think it's for the want of trying, and I think maybe it's a little bit of a myth that Mikel Arteta didn't want to sign a number 9 in the summer. I think they just surveyed the market and didn't think there was anybody out there. You mentioned Alexander Isak. He's so important, so intrinsic with what Eddie Howe is trying to achieve at Newcastle that it would be over Eddie Howe's dead body, I think, for them to sell Alexander Isak, even though there are ongoing contract negotiations, but he's still got plenty of time left on his current deal. I think when we see figures of £150 million, well, that might be a little bit over-egged up in the North East. You're not going to get him for much less than that.
Yeah.
And that's a big commitment for any football club in the age of PSR. Victor Gyökeres was mentioned as a potential Arsenal target, but I think you have to ask the question. Tony Bloom, genius, doesn't get much wrong at Brighton, does he? Why did he think he wasn't good enough for the Premier League? They sold him to Coventry, and when he left Coventry, there was loose talk of a move to the Premier League, but nobody really came to the table. He's gone to Sporting Lisbon. He's done very well. Doesn't necessarily translate to the Premier League. Ivan Toney, I know for a fact that Ivan Toney met with the powers that be at Arsenal before he made that move to Saudi Arabia. They decided character-wise, and character's so important for Mikel Arteta, that he wasn't the right fit. So I think they've explored it. They've just not found the right person at the moment.
Alex, Crystal Palace's Tyreek Mitchell, wanted by several Premier League clubs. I think Atletico Madrid are even another one who are having a peek at him at the moment. Is he likely to move?
I think Palace will be reluctant. Obviously, having sold Elise in the summer and Joachim Andersen, I think that decision has come back to haunt them because he's very much been a part of the Fulham success story.
Yeah.
We know there's interest in Mark Gay from Chelsea. I think if anything develops from Palace in terms of outgoings, it's going to be that between now and the end of the month. But certainly, again, we'll get to the summer. He's a left back, and we know there's a lot of clubs crying out for a left back. I think Liverpool are looking for alternatives to Andy Robertson.
Yeah.
Anthony Robinson being one of them. Milos Kerkez another, but Mitchell probably would come into their thinking. Manchester United are desperate for a left back because it's so important to the system that Ruben Amorim plays to have a natural left footer. Dalot played well at Anfield, but he's not really been brilliant this season. No imminent sign of Luke Shaw coming back. So again, I think Manchester United would certainly be sniffing around him. And I can see the Atletico Madrid link as well. I think Tyreek Mitchell is good pals with Conor Gallagher. So maybe they could link up in Spain.
Well, that was coming from the Mirror. Liverpool were told, according to The Athletic, considering going for the man whose name is very difficult to pronounce, but let's have a go because after all, this is what we're paid to do. Kivika Kvaratskhelia.
That's pretty good, Jim.
I'm probably nowhere near it. A lot of people in this room are laughing at that, and why shouldn't they? But I will laugh later. We know the boy we're talking about, don't we? The lad at Napoli. He can't miss. I wonder if he's going to be a target for slot.
I think he could be. Scaradonna, they call him at Napoli, by the way. Comparisons to the great Diego Maradona. So we'll stick with that for the purposes of pronunciation.
Yeah.
I know he's a player that the hierarchy at Liverpool are admirers of. He obviously played a big part in Georgia being one of the success stories at the Euros. I think PSG seem to be his preferred destination. They're the most advanced. You're talking about 80 million euros for this boy. That's a big fee in January, but we know that PSG can pay it. I think there could be a domino effect here, and Liverpool could be part of the conversation, even if they don't actually end up signing him, because the word in Italy is that Napoli, if they do sell Scaradonna, they would like to bring in Federico Chiesa to replace him. And of course, he's not really got much game time at Liverpool since signing in the summer.
Alex, nobody comes near the valuation of Jude Bellingham at the moment. Whilst you were on the air this morning with Sam Matterface, I was seeing that Jude's valuation is at Real Madrid is something like 210 million at the moment. Wow. So I think he's going to be there for a long time to come. The Transfer Notebook archives, where we pick a famous or infamous transfer that both Alex and myself recall for a certain reason. Rio Ferdinand was one that I've already mentioned. I'll think of another in a second because there are so many. What springs to mind with you?
Well, we'll keep on the Manchester United theme, actually. Cristiano Ronaldo, not his first incarnation at Manchester United, but very much his reincarnation. And you remember at the time, all the talk on the back page of the tabloid newspapers was that Manchester City were going to do the unthinkable and sign Cristiano Ronaldo, this Manchester United icon. And I was one of the first to report that actually Manchester City weren't in the running for Cristiano Ronaldo.
I remember that.
And that opened the way for that fairy tale return to Manchester United. It turned sour very quickly, but again, I talked about the weird and wonderful place I filed stories. I was actually at the racecourse, Goodwood Races, glorious Goodwood as it was that summer, and I got the information. He's not going to City, he's going to United. And again, I trusted my instinct. I was straight on air from the racecourse, and a few days later he signed for Manchester United. And well, it wasn't quite the fairy tale return, was it? But it was still a huge story at the time.
Yeah, so if you're not at a funeral, you're at the racecourse. We'll need to remember that. Alex, one I remember, and I mentioned Ferdinand going from Leeds to Manchester United, and this is maybe a lesson in sticking to what you know. Don't be swayed after you get information that you think is rock solid. I can recall Dejan Lovren down at Southampton. Is he going to be in the move anytime soon, and where would it be? And a very good source told me in the next 48 hours, Lovren will be a Liverpool player. And I put it out on social media, and I said it at the time, and I began to sweat. And you've been in this situation before, Alex. 24 hours goes by, and then you're into getting towards the 48-hour mark. And people, some experts who know next to nothing, are on social media saying, can't wait to get to the 48-hour mark so that you'll be suitably embarrassed. And it was approaching it, and then news came through, Dejan Lovren is a Liverpool player. You have a sigh of relief, don't you? Yeah. But at the same time you think, yeah, I'm glad I stood by what I was told. And that's what this business is all about. This point forward, can you envisage a club who might give us a wow factor? One we didn't see coming, and we think, my God, where did that come from?
Well, there's always the capability for Chelsea to do that. And, we talked a lot about outgoings at Stamford Bridge. It's all very quiet in terms of incomings at the moment, but I'm sure that will change between now and the deadline. And I still think Manchester City, actually, I've spoken about them doing business. They've got a couple of defenders that they're close to signing. Marmoush, who we spoke about previously at Frankfurt, looks like that deal could well happen. They're still a bit short for me in the central midfield area, and I wonder if there could be a bombshell to come in that department between now and February the 3rd.
Alex, I'm quite sure that Julen Lopetegui wouldn't agree with me because he was part of a story that he would rather not have been part of. Well done in the course of the week. Big news about West Ham, Lopetegui going and Graham Potter getting the gig. And I watched as Alex Crook covered it from start to finish. Absolutely, 100% accurately. And that's what you get in this podcast as well. Every Tuesday and Friday, we'll be bringing you shows throughout the talkSPORT YouTube channel. But for even more content throughout the week, you can listen to whatever you get your podcast from Alex and myself. Bye-bye for now.